The Sarathi Collective did not wage war with ships alone. They had a subtler, older weapon, a caste of mind-readers who slipped into enemy thoughts like smoke through a crack in a wall. They unwove generals, poisoned presidents, turned heroes into hollow shells. It was considered humane in a cruel sort of way. No blood, no fire, just a mind gently unmade. Veli's had been such a weapon for 63 cycles. She had broken 17 species without ever lifting a claw. Now she floated in the cold between stars, her filament body coiled inside a stealth pod no larger than a coffin. Below her, through the pod's translucent hull, hung Earth, blue and green and disgustingly alive. Her target, Captain Marcus Thorne, commander of the UNS Resolute, the man who had single-handedly turned the tide of 3 Sarathi offensives. The Collective wanted him erased. She had studied his file, middle-aged, war orphan, no psychometric anomalies. Subject to stress nightmares, mild PTSD, a slight caffeine dependency, in other words, fragile like all humans. Lazy, she thought. Velis extended her consciousness needle-thin and slipped through the hull of the Resolute, past titanium walls and sleeping crew, until she found Marcus's quarters. He lay on a narrow bunk, jaw tight even in sleep. Linens twisted around his legs, a hologram of a woman, wife, sister, flickered on the nightstand. Velis entered. The transition was always strange. A mind was a foreign country and Marcus Thorne was a battlefield. She materialized in his dreamscape as a shadow, formless, silent. The terrain was familiar, memory constructs of trenches, burning ships, a child's birthday party interrupted by alarms. She began to walk, cataloging pressure points. Here a dead friend, there a mission gone wrong. She touched each wound lightly, tasting the residual fear. Yes, she purred to herself, this will take a few hours at most. Then she reached the center of his mind, a clearing in the chaos, and found something unexpected. A figure sat on a crate, cleaning a rifle. It had Marcus's face, but the eyes were older, calmer. It did not look startled or afraid. It looked like it had been waiting. You're not the first predator to try, the thought form said, and Velis realized with a jolt of ice that he could see her. She recoiled, impossible. No species had ever detected a Sarathi intruder inside their own mind. They were ghosts, invisible, unstoppable. Marcus's dream self stood up, slung the rifle over his shoulder, and took a step toward her. The first one, he continued, killed herself on my memories. The second one screamed for 3 days before I let her go. The third, well, you'll meet him later. He's still down there, in the dark. Velis tried to pull back to sever the connection. Her filament body in the stealth pod twitched. Nothing happened. The clearing's edges darkened, the trees became walls, the sky became a ceiling. You wanted to destroy me, Marcus said, and his voice wasn't just his anymore. It carried harmonics, other voices, other minds, a choir of the dead and the living. But you made a mistake, alien. You came alone. The door behind Velis slammed shut. And Marcus Thorne smiled. Velis ran. She had never run inside a mind before. She was the hunter, not the prey. But the corridors of Marcus Thorne's subconscious twisted and branched like a living organism, and everywhere she turned she found more of him. Memories flared like torches. A childhood apartment reeking of smoke, a boot camp drill sergeant screaming encouragement in the rain. A first kill, not an alien but another human, a mutineer Marcus had wept after. The memory still wept. She tried to dig into those wounds, to amplify the grief, turn it into a spiral of despair. But every time she touched a scar it fought back, not with anger, with acceptance. The memory of the mutineer's face didn't make Marcus hate himself, it made him vigilant. The memory of his parents' death didn't paralyze him, it made him gentle with his crew. His traumas had been forged into tools. What kind of species does this to itself? Velis wondered. She found a staircase leading down deep into older strata. She descended, hopping to find a foundational crack. Instead, she found a long hallway lined with doors. Each door was a different color, a different texture. Some were rusted iron, some were soft wood. One was made of something that looked like frozen light. She reached for the light door, but before her thought form could touch it, the hallway shifted. The doors rearranged themselves, the floor became a mirror, and in that mirror Velis saw not her own Sarathi features, but Marcus's reflection, older, beard streaked with gray, standing directly behind her. You're going the wrong way, he said. She spun. He was there, not a memory, not a dream, his actual consciousness standing in front of her. Humans don't hide our scars, Marcus said. We wear them. We learn the shape of every single one. And after a while, he touched his own chest right over his heart. They stop being weaknesses. They become handles for pulling ourselves up. Veles tried to claw at his mind to rip free, but her telepathy, her greatest weapon, slid off him like water off stone. You said you met the first one who tried, she breathed. She killed herself. How? Marcus's expression didn't change. She found the door you almost touched, the one made of light, and she opened it. What's behind it? Everything we almost lost, everything we chose to keep. He took a step closer. Your Sirathi, your kind lives in isolation, minds linked only to the collective, never truly touching another being's soul. You've never felt love the way we do, desperation the way we do, need. The hallway began to rumble, the mirror floor cracked. You wanted to destroy me, Marcus said again. Let's see if you survive the truth. The floor gave way. Veles fell screaming into the dark. She landed not on rock or memory, but on a vast plain of connection. Veles opened her eyes, her dream eyes, her psychic eyes, all three sets, and gasped. Above her stretched a lattice of pure white light, billions of threads, each one humming with emotion, memory, and will. They weren't telepathic links. They were something older, more organic, empathy given form, sacrifice written into the architecture of human consciousness. She reached out with a trembling thought tendril and touched one thread. Image, a mother in a bombed-out city, shielding her child with her own body. The shell hits, the mother dies. The thread does not break, it branches, connecting the child to every other orphan, every other survivor, in an unbroken chain of mutual aid. Another thread. Image, a soldier dragging a wounded comrade through mud while gunfire shreds the air above. The soldier takes a bullet in the leg, keeps dragging. The thread connects him not just to the comrade, but to every medic, every nurse, every stranger who would later donate blood for his surgery. Veles began to tremble. She looked up, and the lattice went on forever, across Earth, across colonies, across generations. Humans were not solitary predators, they were a chorus. Every trauma, every triumph, every small kindness was recorded in this network, and it was active, living, defending itself. No, she thought, no species this chaotic could. The Sirathi collective's psychic link pulsed in the back of her skull, demanding a report. She tried to answer, to tell them what she'd found, to warn them. The link snapped. Not because of interference, not because of distance. Something had bitten through it. Veles staggered, the lattice above her pulsed once like a heartbeat, and then the threads began to move, coiling toward her like curious snakes. They didn't attack, they examined her, touched her mind, felt her loneliness, her centuries of isolation, the cold efficiency of her species. And then mercy. A thread wrapped around her psychic core, not to harm but to hold, and through it she felt them. Millions of human minds, all whispering the same thing. You're not alone anymore. No, she whispered, no, I am the hunter, I am. Marcus's voice, not from in front of her but from inside the lattice. You were, now you're something else. The plane shifted again. Veles found herself standing in a small room, a bedroom by human standards, a child's room, posters of starships on the walls, a worn teddy bear on the bed, and in the center, sitting cross-legged, a boy with Marcus's eyes. The boy looked up at her and smiled. This is where it started, he said, before the war, before the pain, before I became a weapon. He patted the floor beside him. Sit down, Veles, it's time you learned why we're still here. She sat, not from obedience, from curiosity, the first genuine curiosity she'd felt in 200 years. Tell me, she whispered. The boy leaned forward. Once upon a time, he said, humanity almost died. The boy's room dissolved, and Veles was thrown into a memory, so old it felt like archaeology. A savanna, early humans, small, hairy, fragile, huddled around a dying fire. Their numbers fewer than 10,000, their predators everything, their hope none. A volcanic winter had lasted a decade. The tribe had lost half its children. Veles watched, expecting them to crumble, to give up. That's what any rational species would do. Instead, the oldest woman, toothless, blind in one eye, stood up. She took a burning branch from the fire and began to walk toward the darkness beyond the camp. The others hesitated. Then a young man followed. Then a mother carrying twins. Then everyone. They walked for 3 days. The old woman died on the second night. The young man carried her branch. By dawn of the fourth day, they found a cave system, warm, defensible, with underground water. The tribe survived. Velis blinked and the memory skipped forward. Empires rose and fell. Plagues wiped out cities. Wars turned continents to ash. Every time humanity teetered on the edge. Every time the same pattern emerged, a handful of individuals refused to quit. They carried the fire, literal and metaphorical, into the dark, and others followed. They don't survive because they're strong, Velis realized. They survive because they share weakness. Openly, endlessly, one falls, 100 pick them up. The memory savannah became a hospital ship during the First Sarathi War. Burned soldiers screamed on cots. Surgeons worked without sleep. And in the corner, a chaplain held the hand of a dying ensign, whispering not prayers but promises. Your family will know you were brave. Your name will be spoken. You will not disappear. Velis felt tears on her drained face. She hadn't cried in 3 centuries. The lattice of light pulsed again, brighter, and a new voice spoke, not Marcus, not any single humans. It was the voice of the network itself, a chorus of billions. You think we fear death, we are what death fears. Velis's mind reeled. She saw the Sarathi Collective's future now, their cold, efficient empire colliding with this juggernaut of raw, unkillable hope. There would be no victory. There would only be a slow, grinding defeat as humanity's network absorbed every shock, turned every loss into fuel, every defeat into a lesson. I have to warn them, she whispered. The Collective, they don't know what you are. The boy Marcus appeared beside her again. They know, he said quietly. They've always known, that's why they sent you, not to destroy me, to destroy the truth before it spread. The lattice darkened. Velis felt a psychic blade slice toward her, not from Marcus but from outside. The Sarathi Collective had recovered her link, and they were sending a kill switch. Terminate the agent, the Collective's cold imperative echoed. Contain the contamination. The blade struck. Velis screamed. She woke on the floor of Marcus's quarters. Real, physical, her filament body lay crumpled against the bulkhead, steam rising from her cracked carapace. The kill switch had failed, not entirely, but enough. Her connection to the Collective was severed, her telepathic abilities burned out. She was no longer a weapon. She was just an alien, broken, alone. Marcus Thorne sat on the edge of his bunk, watching her. His real eyes, not dream eyes, were dark and exhausted. He had a cup of coffee in his hand, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. You're awake, he said. You should kill me, Velis rasped. Her vocal cords, adapted for telepathy, struggled with sound. I came here to unmake you. I know. Then why am I alive? Marcus took a sip of coffee. Because the first thing your Collective does to traitors is make them wish they were dead, and I don't do the same things your people do. He set the cup down. I saw what you saw, the network, the fire. You felt it, didn't you? Right before the kill switch hit. She had, in that final moment, the lattice had wrapped around her like a blanket, not to defend, but to comfort. 1 billion human strangers had reached out to a dying enemy and said, you matter, even you. Why? She whispered. Marcus stood up, walked to her, and knelt. His face was inches from hers. Sarathi had no concept of mercy. Their word for it translated to strategic inefficiency. But looking into Marcus Thorne's eyes, Velis saw something she had no word for. Because that's the survival truth, he said. Not strength, not intelligence, not even courage. It's that every single one of us is worth saving, even the ones who try to kill us, especially them. He reached out and placed a hand on her cracked carapace. I know you're still in there. Fight with us. The ship's alarms blared. A holographic display flickered to life above Marcus's bunk. A Sarathi dreadnought had just dropped out of FTL, 30 kilometers off the Resolute's bow, weapons charging. They're here to finish what you started, Marcus said calmly. Velis looked at her own reflection in the bulkhead, a shattered alien, exiled from her own people, dying in a human's quarters. She had nothing left, no Collective, no telepathy, no purpose. But she had seen the network, she had felt it. She had a voice. Captain Thorne, she said, struggling to her feet. Get me to your communications array. I can't read minds anymore, but I can broadcast. Marcus's eyebrows rose. Broadcast what? Velis's broken face twisted into something that might have been a smile, or a snarl, or the first real emotion she'd felt in centuries. The truth they tried to kill me for. The Resolute's comm array was not designed for Sarathi physiology. Marcus's engineers had to jury-rig a neural interface in 90 seconds, using scavenged parts and what looked like a lot of hope. Velis stood in the center of the room, cables sprouting from her carapace like dark vines, while the human crew stared at her with a mixture of fear and something stranger, anticipation. The dreadnought will fire in 4 minutes, the tactical officer announced. Marcus looked at Velis. Can you do it? She closed her eyes, her telepathy was gone, the kill switch had cauterized those neural pathways, but the lattice, the human network, had left something behind, a resonance, a frequency. She could feel it humming in her chest, in what remained of her mind. She opened her mouth and sang. Not sound, something deeper, a psychic pulse, raw and unfiltered, carrying everything she had seen inside Marcus Thorne's head. The Savannah fire, the hospital ship, the mother shielding her child, the billions of threads, each one a promise that no one would face the dark alone. The broadcast hit the Sarathi dreadnought like a wave. On the bridge of the alien warship, commanders staggered. Their telepathic networks, cold, efficient, hierarchical, were suddenly flooded with humanity. Not propaganda, not lies, just the truth that pain could be carried together, that failure was not a death sentence, that mercy was not weakness. And the Sarathi, who had never known any of these things, broke. Not in violence, in revelation. Captain Velis's former peers looked at each other with new eyes. They saw, for the first time, the loneliness of their existence, the emptiness of their collective. They saw what they could become. On the Resolute, the tactical officer's jaw dropped. Captain, the dreadnought is powering down weapons. They're hailing us. Marcus Thorne didn't smile, he didn't cheer. He just looked at Velis, the alien who had come to destroy him, and nodded. Open a channel, he said. The next hour was chaos. The Sarathi dreadnought defected, then a second, then a third. The collective's hold began to crumble, not from human military might, but from a single, undeniable truth. They had been given a gift, the chance to feel, to connect, to matter. Velis collapsed after the broadcast, her body spent. Marcus carried her to the medical bay himself. You could have destroyed me, she whispered, as the human medics worked on her. When I was in your mind, you could have killed me there. I know. Why didn't you? Marcus looked down at her, this strange, broken creature from the cold between stars, and for the first time Velis saw him not as a soldier or a symbol, but as a man. Tired, hopeful, terrific and terrible in his humanity. Because that's not how we win, he said. That's how we survive. There's a difference. 6 months later, the war was over, not with a treaty or a surrender, but with a merging. Sarathi and humans began to build something new, a network not of minds, but of shared purpose. Velis stood on the bridge of the Resolute. She had been given a commission, to the grumbling of some old guard, and watched 2 fleets fly in formation. Marcus joined her at the viewport. You came into my head to destroy me, he said. Velis smiled, a real smile, the first of her long life. Instead, you destroyed my cage. Outside, the stars waited, and for the first time in history, 2 species faced them together. Not as hunters, not as prey. As survivors. The end.